I'm Chris Williams. I'm the GM of a group within Big Fish Games called Skyrocket Studios. Big Fish can be a little bit of a confusing company from the outside looking in. We do a lot of things. We have a lot of different groups focused on a lot of different initiatives. We're a developer and a publisher. We're successful. We're large. We're here in Seattle and also down in the Bay Area. But I think we have a very data-centric and sort of disciplined approach to how we make games and how we invest in games. I should disclose that I'm a general manager. I'm a business guy that's invaded your design track here today. So I wore a suitably boring blue-colored shirt to really fill my role as the business guy. But my job is to ask questions, right? And my job is to invest in teams and invest in games and invest in technology. And when I think about what are the big sort of strategic questions that we need to be asking of our games as we look at where to invest. This one's been coming up, and what's crazy is we actually have this stat for the game I'm going to tell you about today because it's been live for 2,000 days in the App Store. But what I really want to do is talk you through Fairway Solitaire. I can take absolutely no credit for the creation of Fairway Solitaire. I've really just had the pleasure of sort of shepherding it from a business standpoint. I'm going to talk you through sort of the early history of it, but really I'm going to focus on sort of the past 18 months of where we've been. It's a casual puzzle game. It combines solitaire and golf, which has been described as sort of the vodka Red Bull of video games, sort of taking two things that on their own are maybe of questionable appeal. When you put them together, you get a winning recipe for success. It is a rich, diverse, deep, dynamic game today, but it hasn't always been that way. And so what I'm going to do today is sort of talk you through the past 18 months and some of the big changes that we've made to the game, and talk about what those changes were, what the impact was, and sort of give you a sense of where the investments paid off and maybe where they didn't. But also, this is a game that's in its prime right now, and it's been around for quite a while. So here's sort of the pre-2016 history of Fairway Solitaire. It actually came out in 2007 on the PC. Big Fish has a great history and even today is deeply invested in the PC Mac download business. In 2012, it was launched on the iPhone. That was around the iPhone 3S, iPhone 4 era of iPhone. And it won a whole bunch of awards, but it launched as a premium game, meaning it was a free download, sort of try before you buy game. And throughout the first 2 years of its life, it was morphed painfully and slowly into a free-to-play game. And for any of you that are in the free-to-play space and understand, the challenges of taking something that wasn't originally conceived as free-to-play and adding virtual currency and adding sales and promotions to it, that's a painful journey. But I would say that in and of itself would not have made the game successful. We wouldn't be talking here, 3.5 years later about this game if the team hadn't made one critical decision. And that's that little calendar with wings in the middle of this chart. They decided to release new content every single day into this game. And for those of you, Big Fish's history, Big Fish has a history of releasing a new game every day. So this didn't seem terrifying to the company. But it was, at the time, a pretty bold decision. This was early in the era of free-to-play, games as a service. Games were not dynamic. They were typically sort of these big, bloated client-side apps. But the team said, every day you log into Fairway Solitaire, there's going to be a new course for you. And what that did is that bought us time. That bought us the ability to have a highly engaged, highly loyal, long-time audience. But it left us at a brutal crossroads. You can see the five icons stacked up there in a row. In early 2014, this game had 10 SKUs. It had 3 discrete code stacks. It was an absolute technical mess. And so we made the decision to say, hey, you know what we're going to do? So we're going to completely rebuild it. We're going to rebuild it on a whole new tech stack. We're going to take a year to architect this thing from the ground up because we think the best days are still ahead. We think we're going to be able to do great things with this game. It's a good game, but it's not yet a great game. Users love it, but we're hamstrung by this very painful series of legacy decisions that left us with this bloated, complex thing. And getting an update out every 3 months was a pain, and we needed to be doing updates every 3 weeks, and we need to be releasing new stuff to customers every 3 days. So we took a year to completely rebuild the game. Shortly after that, we released some new hazards, some new power-ups, sort of freshened up the game a little bit with some improved gameplay. And that brings us to the beginning of 2016, which is the focus of today's talk. So since the beginning of 2016, Fairway has consistently been a top 100 or about, bumping up and down below that top 100 grossing rankings in the United States. So doing that for a year and a half is really hard. It's in very good company in terms of the games that it bumps up against in the App Store. But you could look at this and you could say, well, it's Big Fish, they're a big company, they're just dumping a bunch of marketing dollars into it. So it's hard to look at that and say, has the game gotten really any better? We launched it on Google Play, relaunched it, I should say, in sort of September of 2016. And it launched and did well and rose and is now sort of in the top 125 grossing Google Play. So this is not, a top 10, top 20 game. It may be a game that's even off your radar. But it's a game that has, sustained success, lasting success. And that's very, very hard to achieve in the App Store as we see these games, rise and fall and come and go. I'm a business guy. Apologies for the y-axis missing, but this has been the bookings growth, and it's you can see that 2015 period where things were pretty flat. But you can see right when we at the beginning of 2016, this game started to grow, and it's grown 300% in the past 18 months. So that's a business result that we're very pleased with. That shows that the investments that we've been making have been paying off at a very meaningful level and flowing through to the bottom line. But here's, you can see this in publicly available data, but here's some not publicly available data. This is lifetime value, and that green line is, most of you should be familiar with this concept if you're in mobile gaming, particularly free-to-play gaming. But lines go up and to the right are a good thing. The steeper and straighter, the better. But that green line is a group of people that installed the game in August of 2014. And that's their value throughout the life of the game. And it's a good line because it's very stable. It doesn't die. It doesn't go flat. It keeps growing for a very long period of time. But that blue line is people that installed the game late last year, and it's almost a 160% improvement in LTV. So I show you these to give some credibility and some weight to what I'm about to talk about, because the game is dramatically better today than it was 18 months ago. And I want to share some thoughts around why I think that is. All right, so team. Game's been live for a long time. The way I invest in games and my philosophy is team, tech, game, right? If you don't have an amazing team working on a great tech stack, it doesn't matter what your game is, it's going to fail. You have to empower a team to be nimble, to be agile, to be iterative. And so this is just really highlighting the fact that this team today, despite record growth and record-breaking revenue, has a whole bunch of people on it that have been on the team for less than 6 months. We've got, this is not the entire team. The team is actually 26 people. But what I'm highlighting here is that you've got some veterans who have been on the team for 3-4 years, particularly on the technical front. It's good to keep them around. But then on the sort of operational side, on the product side, and on the UX side, you've got fresh energy coming into the team. And if you've been running a game for a long time and you haven't brought in fresh talent, fresh ideas, fresh energy, you run a real risk of stagnating, and you run a real risk of just sort of repeating past mistakes and not bringing fresh perspective to your game. So this has definitely been one of the key aspects of our recent success. Is a veteran, capable team that's constantly being supplemented with excited new talent. So, what are the big features that we added in 2016? What are the things that if you go and look at the game pre-post 2016, are really sort of popping out as major new features? There was tons of changes. I mean, the team, once they got on that new tech stack, is making changes all the time because the new tech stack is very dynamic, back-end driven, allows them to be very fluid, run A/B tests, and really operate that game in the way that a free-to-play mobile game needs to be operated, which is like a nightclub, right? If you're not running your mobile free-to-play game like a nightclub, then you have no chance of keeping your users around for 30 days, let alone 2,000 days. And I think the design team came forward and said, there's two big things missing from Fairway Solitaire right now. One is some kind of collection system, something where you're playing through the progression, you're beating levels, you're moving forward, but I need another reason to care. I need something else that's sort of tallying or building up in the background. And so they introduced stamps. And the cat stamps are very popular with this audience, which is why I'm highlighting them here. But it's a fun, themed way of saying, there's some long-term collections, there's some short-term time box collections. There was an attempt to monetize it where you could buy stamp packs, and there's rare stamps, and there's a little bit of gotcha in there where there's sort of, common stamps and rare stamps. You can watch an ad and get a stamp. And this feature, took a substantial amount of time to develop and got added to the game. And, you got McDivitt. This is the first slide where McDivitt has not looked happy. Because this did not have a big impact to the business. From a KPI standpoint, users loved it, and people lit up on Facebook about it, and it was fun. But from a business side, I didn't see an impact to this feature. Certainly not one that would have justified the investment in building it. So then we moved on to Boost. Well, what was missing from the game? One of the biggest challenges with Fairway Solitaire or any free-to-play game is you end up in this vicious cycle of the only reward you have to give is more of the currency that you're trying to get people to use to get the reward, right? So any sort of semi-savvy player who can do rough math is like, why would I spend 5,000 golf bucks to make 500 golf bucks? So we were constrained in offering exciting prizes to players. So even if you collected all these stamps, or even if you, did really well in the event or whatever it was, the best we could do for you was a couple hundred golf bucks, and users can very quickly equate that to a US dollar amount and say, was that worth, 3 days of my life? So we introduced perks. Perks are like a boost system. So it's a really meaningful sort of user-activated way of enhancing your gameplay. So, you have your perk active, and something about your gameplay, maybe there's a greater probability of things happening. Maybe you get sort of infinite mulligans. It's sort of the equivalent of the infinite lives that's very common in the casual puzzle games right now. Fairway doesn't have lives, by the way, which may be part of its excellent retention. But this was introduced, and we put it out there. Very well designed, very well intended, very well presented. It also got a sad McDivitt from the business standpoint. Did not have a meaningful impact to business KPIs. And so I'm meeting with the team. I'm like, these are some big swings, and it's really not adding up to much. And they said, well, wait, because these were foundational. These were the layup. These were the things we needed to move the needle. And that's when we moved into the next phase of improving the game, which was the live ops. And what I didn't understand, because I'm not a smart game designer-y person, is that we needed the collections, we needed the rewards, we needed these foundational systems to be able to do this. And this is when the game really came to life, and this is when the needle really started moving. They added a news feed to the start of the game. This means every user comes in and they get a dynamic, curated, customized announcement system that tells them as a user what's exciting. Do they want to go to the next course in the progression? Do they want to go, take part in the event? What's going on? What's special to them? And there's a global tour. Maybe everyone needs to accomplish something. And this is important when you end up with a deep, sort of rich, multifaceted casual puzzle game. New courses daily. We stuck to that. We keep delivering those. Our users expect that. There's a whole bunch, there's about 20,000 users at the end of the progression who play every day for these courses. And when we look at the value of this, we've invested in this, we've improved this, but we keep doing that, and that rolls up into our overall sort of event strategy. That's our events calendar. It's intentionally small so you can't see the detail. But you can get a sense for what the team is executing on a monthly basis. And there are 40 unique events going live in Fairway Solitaire every month. And that's not rinse repeat on something that works last month. That's something exciting, something new, something for users to engage with. And within this newsfeed and within this sort of events construct are two important concepts. The concept of a tour, which is like a quest. So, finish 3 holes under par. It might be something you were already going to do. But then as far as gameplay events, these are exciting things that, are active for the community. Hey, you were thinking about playing for 20 minutes, but maybe you should play for an hour because your gameplay is enhanced in some way, and you're going to get more rewards, more value out of your time. So this is when things really started to tick, but we couldn't have done this if we didn't have the prior systems to build upon. I want to talk a little bit about events, because everyone talks about events and live ops. And it's really, really important that your events are not some repetitive, let's just rehash that thing from last month. Every month, the team rolls out exciting, timely, themed events. This Under the Sea one was really cute. They incorporate the characters. Summer vacations are happening. They did a national parks one recently. And these come out, and they have beautiful artwork and content. They excite the community. The users get really lit up about them on social media. It threads through the whole game, so the stamps are themes, the courses are themed, the daily courses are themed. So the whole game feels like it's in this special mode, and then it never happens again. So it creates this, like, you got to be in there every day, all the time, or you're going to miss something, right? And that is when you really are a circus master. You're running your game in a way where users have to feel like, if I'm not playing today, I'm missing something. And if you don't have that dynamic, if you don't have a team that's operating in that mindset, then you have no chance of having a good D2000 metric, probably not even a good D30 metric. So here's the punchline to the talk. I asked this question of the team, and the data analysts were like, "Are you kidding me? We got to go back and figure this out." But they went back and found that there were about 50 users that have been in Fairway Solitaire since 2012. Over those 2,000 days, they have averaged 161 days of gameplay. So think about that. For these 50 users, 10% of their lives have been spent playing Fairway Solitaire over this time period, roughly 10%. They've earned 3,600 stars. They've completed 906 courses. There's 72 bonus courses in the game, and 4,380 daily course holes. So this is an unbelievable level of commitment and passion and conviction to this game. I don't have this as a percentage. It would be a very, very, very small percentage, obviously, since it's only 50 users. But I think the point is that this is the level of passion and conviction and commitment and loyalty that you can create in your game if you make it relevant, make it vibrant, make it fresh, and keep delivering new content to users on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Now, we're going to keep an eye on this stat, but this is the stat I'm most impressed with Fairway Solitaire. After all these changes, I'm a money guy, but I'm not looking at ARPDAU and I'm not looking at LTV. I'm looking at this stat. And this is that close to 40% of everyone who installs Fairway Solitaire is still playing it 60 to 90 days later, which is a very, very strong retention stat. And that doesn't mean they were active on day 60, doesn't mean they were active on day 90, but they were active in that 60 to 90 day period. And that to me is a real user. That's someone who we have a chance of keeping around for 2,000 days. And that's a metric that we obsess over because it really reflects someone who has made more than that 1 day, 1 week, or even 30-day commitment to the game. And then within that group of users, obviously, we look for habitual play, we look for frequent engagement, and we obsess over users who play every day. And more importantly, we worry about users who don't. And if you haven't created that lifestyle, that habitual play, then you got work to do. Here's the obligatory Big Fish promotional section of the presentation. Looking forward, we're growing, we're hiring, we're moving into an awesome new building right down here on the waterfront next year. There's lots of opportunities. We're doing a lot of really exciting things across the wide spectrum of gaming. So definitely, please do check out our careers section. And it's a fun company to work for. I feel really privileged. There was a talk earlier this morning that talked about it's very rare for companies to be, large, successful companies to be investing in innovative things, trying new stuff. We have a portfolio approach, right? I run a portfolio of games within a portfolio of studios, and Big Fish in and of itself is within a portfolio of companies. And so we are able to do some exciting new stuff while also maintaining the games that are doing well. So if you're interested, come check us out. We got a booth down over in the hall, and I'll open it up for questions.
So before the game actually started making seriously good money, you actually had to invest a fair amount in creating new content, hiring community managers, and actually spending a good deal of money. How on earth did you justify that spend if adding all the features you did before didn't really make a meaningful difference?
Well, I think what you see in the industry at large, and I think there's even been some commentary on this, is that it's really, really hard to have a hit game, but it's also really, really hard to even just have a semi-successful game, right? So as a GM, if we have something that's good, if we have something that we can build upon, we get to work, right? And I think that Fairway represented an opportunity we could see that there was long-term retention there. We could see that there was loyalty. We were continuing to put out content for it, but it needed to shift into another gear to really grow, and so we made that investment. But to me, that's a safer investment and a smarter investment than go and rolling the dice on something brand new, because 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a goose egg, and that's not going to result in something that's even remotely investable.
So, I mean, that sounds like it's kind of easier for big fish, given sort of the semi-deep pockets you've got over there. If you're running a 2 or 3 person studio, that's a really material investment. So, is it realistic for a small to medium-sized studio to actually target 200, 250 day retention, much less 2,000?
Well, I think there's a content commitment, which I agree with you is expensive, but I think if you're looking at your game through the design lens, and you don't have a credible answer to the question of why would someone still be playing this game 100, 200, 2,000 days in, maybe there's something worth chasing. Maybe it's the community itself, but there's got to be some credible answer to that question. Because if you only have them for 30 days, it's not long enough. You can't get an LTV curve to pass a CPI curve in 30 days. So you got to keep them in there long enough to make the math work. And so that's really even if you're a small indie company and you're on the ground floor designing a new game, I think you got to be considering that question, even if it doesn't come with fresh new content every day.
All right, I've got any questions from the audience? You guys want to jump in here? Be my guest. I do have one more question for you. Was there any retention mechanic you guys looked at that you thought, this is going to be in every game Big Fish does? If we don't have this mechanic, we are leaving a serious opportunity on the table and doing our customers a service.
Yes, it's not so much a mechanic, but it's the commitment to how we run the team. Right, and it's the commitment to how we run the content in the game and how we keep it fresh and vibrant and active. So we have other games in our portfolio that aren't growing at the rate that Fairway is, but we still have small, dedicated teams keeping those games live, vibrant, active, keeping them fresh for the users that are there. Because as soon as a user senses that they're at the end of the rope, or they even see the end of the line, if they see that last level, or they get a sense that they're reaching that completion point, they're just going to move on. And so I think it is the commitment to live ops and events that is pervasive, and that has to be in every game to give it a chance of success.
Great, Steve. Hey, I'm sorry, Chris. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right.